Hey guys, welcome to today's discussion and live stream on the life and times of Miles Davis. We are hosting this live stream on behalf of the South African Association for Jazz Education in conjunction with Cape Town International Jazz Fest, UKZN Centre, and Creative Arts. So I'd like today to take a second to just say thank you to all the people involved for making this possible, and I hope you guys get to enjoy spending time with us talking about the music of Miles Davis and how it's influenced us all the way down in South Africa. Um, I mean, we've spent a lot of time listening to jazz and learning jazz and seeing how it influences South African ears. And for musicians who's starting out, Miles is he's a massive yardstick by which to measure jazz by. He's prolific for a great many reasons. But before I get into it too much, let me invite today's other panelists in no particular order, but I'm going to start with the OG because he's been one of the kindest, greatest musos and a pioneering trumpeter for South Africans. Bra Sydney Mavundla will be joining us. He is legendary, so much so that he doesn't need a photo. You'll know who he is. So how's it, Bra Sydney?
I'm good, and how are you, man? And
Yes, yeah, no. Great. Thank you for coming on. Yeah, we got you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, man. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me as well.
No, absolutely a pleasure. Thank you for carving out time for us. Then another brother I would like to invite onto our panel is Mandla Mwangeni, apologies. He's a research fellow and music scholar and kick-ass trumpeter, having worked in some prolific bands, which he can tell you about himself. Say hello to Mandla. Is it?
How's it? Sean, the great maestro, bassist, and Malume Sydney. It's always great to be in your company. Hope you had a safe trip from Germany, Bremen.
Oh, yeah.
And lots of gigs lined up.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
And then, last but not least, I'd like to invite the little giant. I'm going to coin that one for a long time. Definitely one of the big voices for trumpet out of South Africa, just carving his own trail on so many levels. The prolific lecturer and musician and avid car, almost a dealer, fanatic, Darren English. Please say hello and please welcome Darren.
Hey Sean, hey Mandla, Sydney.
How's it?
So good to be with you guys. Lekker.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Gents, thank you so much. Let's just kick it off right off the bat in no particular order. Chat about a little bit about yourself for a second, and then possibly have a look at like your first encounter with Miles Davis's music and reflect on that a little bit. Whoever wants to go first, go first.
Sydney.
All right.
Since it was so long ago,
No, I just realized I'm getting older because everyone wants to say the elders first. You know what? As much as I've never met him, but the truth is, he really did influence some of us and the music that we're playing today. When Prahu, I was very close to Prahu. When he speaks about Miles Davis and what shaped Prahu, Dizzy Gillespie and Miles Davis, they shaped him. You remember what you call this thing, the jazz episodes?
Mm-hmm.
For
jazz
me,
episodes, yes.
With Abdullah and Jonas Kwangwana, it was more like jazz messengers. That's what they were looking at it, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, recently when I started working around Hugh's music, and I could see really this guy, he really loved Clifford Brown, but he was told by Miles Davis that, look here, we do have a Clifford Brown here, we do have everything. We want to hear where you're coming from. You are, so we want to hear you, basically. So hence we've got the Hugh Masekela that we had today. And the aspect that I love the most is the fact that Miles didn't say to Hugh, look at the music and music alone. It's the entrepreneurship in his music as well, because they were working in the music to make a living as well, which is what we always forget as maybe trumpet players or maybe as musicians or jazz musicians. We forget sometimes. We're always happy to play music and just play music and be happy. But I remember when Rahul said to me, he said, I see all the youngsters, they're trying to study music, but where is the work for them? Which was a big question for me. Where is the work for them? So basically, Miles Davis shaped somebody to shape us. That's what I'm saying, basically. Yeah, thank you.
No, got you. I mean, fair enough. I mean, if you look at Miles's, he was, to my opinion, it was a big commercial success, which very few jazz musicians actually pull off. And he became a brand unto himself. I mean, down to his famous pose,
That's right.
So now I'm right behind you there. That's great. Mandela, I don't know if you want to go next.
Yeah, I mean, from when I was young, I think Miles Davis was always the influence on me, particularly his big band, his collaborations with Joe Evans, and I think the first record that I listened to of Miles was the live at Carnegie Hall, with that famous "My Funny Valentine" recording. With before he went into the second great band, so he was almost in between. In between that, he was, I think, George Coleman was on sax, and then Tony Williams on drums. I think Herbie was there, and then Ron Carter. I think, but the missing guy there was
Tony Williams
Wayne Shorter.
wasn't on drums.
When Tony Williams was on drums, but it was just before. It was just before the second great band. That was my first encounter. It was live, My Funny Valentine, live at Carnegie Hall, and I couldn't understand his music, and that was the first recording that I had. And then obviously I used to hang around with Oscar Rachabani, the grandson of the great Prabhani Rachabani, and he was a Charlie Parker freak. So obviously with Charlie Parker, there was actually Miles Davis recorded the most with Charlie Parker. Those great records, from the Omnibook, all those Omnibook tunes that we hear, like your Klektor Wiedenstein, your Coco, all those things. So we hear Miles Davis, but he's a very different kind of Miles Davis. And then there's always, but my personal favorite of Miles Davis is it's About That Time. I don't know if you know that record. I think it's recorded at the Plug Nickel. And it's also just before he switches over to Bitches Brew, and other things are kind of happening there. I think I think who's on the band? I think Chick Corea, Wayne Short. It's just before, it's just before the Bitches Brew thing, and things are. I think Dave Holland is on bass, and that record is like kicking. And the first time I encountered that record was actually while I was an exchange student in Norway, and that record actually had a profound influence on me in how you actually interpret music and how you create how you create a vibe. Essentially, it's not so much what you play, but how you play it, and that's what the spirit of Miles embodied. And I think more than anything else, Miles was always at the forefront of something new. Whether it was good or not, that remains another question. But he was every 5 years he would always change the direction of the music, of where he was. And I think also, I think to conclude, to round off that thread, is that I think you can also see it rub off, particularly with our very great export, which Bras Sydney has alluded to, Hugh Masekela, who was of a similar vein, in that he was also pushing the boundaries and of where the music was, And not only was Miles' influence only on Brahu Masekela, he was also on other great trumpeters that we actually forget to mention, such as your Dennis Mpale,
Yes.
your Stompy Manana, and also the sound and how people actually formulated their bands and the sounds that they sampled was because they heard Bitches Brew or they heard In a Silent Way or his associations with various musicians along particularly that time after Bitches Brew. So that's his influence mainly mainly in the South African sound.
Wow, that's brilliant. I mean, yeah, no, thank you that's a very great insight, actually. And some albums I forgot about. I didn't even know about Carnegie Hall because I was such a Gil Evans fan because of Sketches of Spain. I'd missed that, man. That's so weird. Okay, Mr. English, you want to give us your first encounter there?
Man, my first encounter was probably when I started trumpet in high school. So my music teacher, Fred Kate, was obviously very influential in pushing jazz music as a subject in school. And when I started the trumpet, he literally said, "Look, this is what you need to listen to. Take these CDs home over, I think it was Christmas or something." He gave me Miles Davis Kind of Blue. I think he gave me Winter Marsalis, Hothouse Flowers, and possibly another compilation with Dizzy and Miles. And I think Kind of Blue actually changed my life. I know that saying is said quite frequently, but it really has. I feel, Kind of Blue has that impact. Not because it's also the top-selling jazz album of all time, but every song in there there's a whole entire story on the album, And I feel listening to that album till today, that's one of my top 5 desert albums. I also feel that the one track on there, Kind of Blue, I'm still not sure if Bill Evans wrote that or if Miles wrote that, but let's just say it's probably 50-50. Miles had the sound, Bill definitely had the harmony. That tune for me, if you put it on, it's so timeless. Someone made a 2-hour version on YouTube of the song that just loops after it finishes and it continues and it continues. It just starts again. And I was like, finally, there's someone that gets it. But Miles's sound has that effect, As trumpet players, we play with a harmony mute for no one else but for Miles, We literally put that harmony mute in. We work on that sound because of Miles. Miles literally took something that already existed and revolutionized it, which can't be said for a lot of people. And then, I'm huge into Miles till today. I think he's my number one influence on so many levels. On what he was. Not everything was good, but he was an incredible player. He pioneered different genres of music. He found so many influential people that we look up to today: Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, Carlos Santana, Dak DeJohnette that we just lost last year. Keith Jarrett, and the list goes on. Like he put them on the forefront, just like, for example, Alvin Dyers did for us, or something. So Miles was that spearhead that literally changed music as we know it. Because Miles, I feel he also brought on other genres in music that I can totally credit him for that. And then obviously his love for other things, cars and things that I just, I definitely love that about him. He literally saw more. Miles made music seem more than music, which I think is the most important thing that I take away from Miles, is that music wasn't his everything. He's like, man, I love music and music needs to love me.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes to Miles.
Well, so. What's nice is everybody's stories kind of line up on the aspects of, for me, that make Miles. My first run-in with Miles, I might have still been in high school, and George Werner was teacher at the jazz workshop. He made me cassettes, and one of them was Fat Time, the Man with a Hat album. First time I heard him, so it's Mike Stern on guitar, Marcus Miller on bass. Obviously, bass player, I hear Marcus Miles. That's nice.
Sure.
I give him a skip. But it's also because he's playing went above my head. When I got into university, and I'd learned some jazz stuff, from being exposed from, Alvin Dyer's jam and that stuff, and I'm getting into jazz now. And, I get to Sketches of Spain is the first thing of Miles I actually listened to. I listened to Kind of Blue like almost 5 years later. And I'm kind of glad I went in that order because the Gil Evans thing is so lush, and Miles's sound is just pierces through every tune. And so when he plays that one note, it sends you. And that's always the thing that stuck out with me. What's cool is, but I certainly is talking about, he had the entrepreneurial business acumen and commercial side there. You mentioned as well, Miles is attributed to having changed the sound of jazz at least twice. And I don't know many musicians who can claim that about any genre, So I'll just say it's pretty cool that you guys all latch on to multifaceted parts of what makes Miles, which is kind of hip.
Sure.
So pressing on, can you? Because again, I'm talking to three trumpeters who are very distinctly different players, right? But you all have Miles as a source. You can't not. So what about? Can you talk about? Because you've talked about his influence on your playing, but what about like things like tone, space, innovation, band leading, and how it resonates with you guys in your own project?
Yeah. Can I come in there?
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah. So they know, Sydney. I see Mandela's got this one.
No, it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah,
there's that record of Cannonball Adderley, Something Else, where they do Dancing in the Dark, Autumn Leaves.
Yes.
And Miles is actually a sideman there, and the band is quite cooking. He's got a killer band. I think Hank Jones, Art Blakey,
Sam Jones.
Is it Sam Jones?
Yeah,
Sam Jones. Yeah, Art Blakey, and then Miles Davis is a sideman, and Cannonball, and somehow that album actually feels like it's Miles Davis's album, but Cannonball is leading it, and the funny thing is that Cannonball lays it down, but and the solos from Cannonball are like almost very melodic, but there's another aspect about when Miles takes the solo and when he blows, even after playing, and usually it's Miles Davis records because Miles usually takes the first solo, but it's different from this one because Cannonball takes the first solos here. But when Miles Davis comes in and he opens up the Autumn Leaf solo, it's like he sings and he gives it space, and he doesn't really need to. He just goes for the pretty notes, and it's like it's brooding. That trumpet is brooding, and that's for me is one of the most classic things about him. Even though he's not actually, it's not, and it's one of the few records that he did with Blue Note, apart from obviously Birth of the Cool, but the one that really stands out that he's done with he's done as a sideman. And I don't think there are actually quite a few of there's so many that he's done as a sideman, especially once he was established. Obviously with Charlie Parker, and obviously with other singers such as your Billie Holiday and Sarah Vaughan and all of those. But I think that's one of the records that stands out where he's not actually the sideman, but actually seems to take the direction in a different way. It takes it in many different ways.
Cool. I mean, yeah. So, Sydney, you were going to say before Mandela cut you off so rudely. Jokes.
Sorry. No.
Sorry, I couldn't waste that opportunity. Sorry, brother Sydney.
All I wanted to say is the fact that we must remember as well that we were taught simplicity by Miles Davis. When you look at So What? Beep-a-doop, fa-do-de-do, ba-do-do, fa-do-ba-do-de-do, and then we go back to when talking about a leader in a band. What we learn from Miles when he takes control of his band. I remember there's a story about John Coltrane. He had a toothache. His tooth was giving problems. And Miles says to him, "You take off the tooth, then you're out. I'm going to fire you." And at the time, Miles was the better paying musician at the time. So nobody wanted to lose the gig. But at the end of the day, I want to say I like the simplicity that it came with. Even when you go through all, because if you go through all the genres that he worked on, I mean, when he played the Michael Jackson stuff, still there was more simplicity as well. Boop, bop, da-da, boop, bop, bip, bop, 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 yoop, da. It was about simplicity, because remember, he came from the bebop side of things, where he felt like Dizzy killed it. I might as well just move to something else. Yes, he played bebop himself, but he felt like he needs to do something different. So basically, I'm more interested on the fact that he contributed to the jazz in South Africa. Basically, I'm going to say that. For me, I'm going to still emphasize on the fact that people like Brahu, they brought all the. I've never met Miles Davis, but people like Brahu, they brought all the knowledge that they've learned from Miles Davis, which is more like an influence to some of us who have met people like Hugh Masekela and all that. So basically that's all I'm saying. But the simplicity, I still emphasize on that, because I love the simplicity. Yet it was not like when you transcribe a solo and you think it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but it does sound easy on the ear, because the way he presents, he presents himself to everyone, it's it's a lot of things in those two notes. It's a lot of things.
There's a lot of info there. Okay, yeah, no, for sure. Shop.
Man, I'll piggyback off that, like Miles's simplicity or Miles's ability to make complex seem simple. Complexity seems turned simplicity. That for me is pure genius.
That's true. That's very true.
And I'll say this, I mean, like I remember transcribing the So What solo in high school and thinking, man, I got it down. It's it's easy.
Yeah.
When I got to university, we had to obviously do a transcription. I had at that point, luckily, a few transcriptions in the bag. So I was like, I'll just use that one as my first one, which was fine. But then when I obviously listened back to it, I was like, man, all I'm doing is playing the notes, which are easy. But then I was like, even just recently, I was playing it with another friend of mine. And we went through the solo, and it's like, man, to actually play with that feeling, that's something that you can't transcribe feeling. You can't learn feeling either. You either feel it or you don't. And it's something that I think you can be inspired by, and it can kind of become one with you, but you can't teach it. So going through that solo on So What, for me, it's like going through you're like, man, there's so many nuances. It's not just a simple 3 notes that he starts with, but like his phrasing, his breath work, things that we may not even think about. But you go like, man, it was so natural for him to do that. It was like well poised. It's like listening to Nelson Mandela speak, or Barack Obama, or Denzel Washington. Man, it's always so like, damn, that's hip. It's always so well poised. And Miles just had that thing, even when he spoke. So I think when he played with that feeling, if you will, it could come across simple because everyone could understand it. Miles did it for people who didn't listen to jazz. I mean, he literally went across the border. But when we listen to something like So What, it's so enjoyable. I wouldn't say that it's easy, but it's so easily listenable. And I think therein lies the genius of what Miles was able to do to simplify things, let's say for the masses, instead of just having it sticking to bebop or sticking to something that that doesn't ostracize, but also makes your audience smaller. You know, we all know this as jazz players, as jazz trumpet players. There are certain. What's strange is that in today's time, a jazz trumpet player's biggest gig is still playing with a pop guy.
Oh, wow.
You know,
Yes.
that's a fact. That's a
Yeah,
fact.
if you want to get paid, for sure. Yeah.
That's the best paying gig. Man, Miles was that guy. Miles was that pop guy. You know, and yet he
That's
was
a
Miles.
lesson to us as well.
You know, and yet he came up through bop. I mean, hard bop. He nailed all of the genres, and then still pioneered the next, and made it easily accessible for all of us to kind of be a part of, which is incredible.
I mean, those are all very, very, very useful outlooks of the same player. I mean, the first thing you pick up with Miles is it's like Darren says, you know, it's the gravity of his three notes. It's the way and the way. Yeah, any fool can play those three notes, but it's never going to carry that weight. It's just you know, he punches in a different class, and I don't know what it is, but you know,
it's almost easier to play fast. You know, it's easy to play fast.
That mastery level, but I think if there's anything we can all agree to a little bit, and Miles was a good example of it. You know, I always use the iceberg analogy with my students. You only see the tip, you don't see the massive flow that lies beneath. And so when you look at Miles's path, I mean, he's been sideman, as Mandela's pointed out there. He's been composer and band leader, and he's been prolific. Kind of Blue is a prolific genre-changing album, says us, you know, for that West Coast sound, and then like the Gil Evans thing with the sound tapestry, and then, you know, he's got Human Nature 10 years on, and he kills that too. But his band, his players are always top flight. And the one thing that I always remarked on, again, as the session player or as the bass player, Miles demanded excellence from the people around him, even at times when he didn't play. He almost, I feel like the pressure's on when he's not playing, actually. And every now and again, you'll see a couple of inserts. I mean, there was one with Herbie Hancock the other day where he says, you know, Miles gave him a stink eye because he's playing something fishy under him, and he knew in 2 seconds. Hang on, let's just bring it home here quickly. And because just in his presence alone, and also Miles's note choice was not reliant, but it, you know, if you listen to Wayne Shorter, it's the same thing. If you actually had to take Wayne Shorter out, like the software does these days, from the bands he's in, what he plays almost makes no lyrical, musical sense. Seems atonal. But it's because they, you know, instead of say 50 words, they say 3. And it doesn't make sense to you because it doesn't make sense to you. If that makes sense. You know, they just add the way of phrasing and poising. So I like the way you said it's the poise with which he played. And obviously, like as Mandela said, or you said, I think, if you've never heard jazz, you've heard Miles Davis's Harmon Mute.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's just, you know, it's hard to beat with as much as Dizzy Gillespie and those cats. And if you think about, if you look, and this is just my 2 cents, if you look at the influence on players who've come down the line, and it includes stuff like lifestyle, whatever. I mean, I think of someone like Roy Hargrove. I think of somebody like Wallace Roney. You know, you can see that they modeled, if outrightly or not, you can see that there's a massive Miles takeaway there. I mean, how could you not?
Yeah,
you
totally.
know?
Especially Wallace.
Especially Wallace, so down to the shades and Ellis, you know. But I don't mean it as a joke. If you look at somebody like Christian Scott and the guys who've come before, I mean, imagine Miles making an album like Tutu and then trying to make it years later, a decade later. I mean, that is, or decades later. It's pretty. It just shows like the you know, the reach by which Miles had influence. So now I would ask the awkward question. Well, it's awkward for me because I don't know where to start. How has Miles's influence pushed into South African jazz? The obvious thing here as well, if you play trumpet and you're into jazz, you must cross the path of Miles Davis. And the same way that if you play saxophone, you must cross the path of Charlie Parker because, you know, it's the instruments, in my opinion, it's how people would recognize the instrument. So the question then is, in a South African jazz context, how does Miles's music playing, etc., filter into our music or our South African music landscape, let's say.
I'd say particularly the later period of Miles, post post Bridges Brew, In a Silent Way, that fusion stuff most definitely made the biggest influence. I think the most cultural, the biggest cultural influence, because I think particularly with Liberation and the bands that came up during that time, and the bands, and because I mean South Africa was always looking to Black Americans for their influence, and so you also find groups such as Sakile and the music, that kind of music, that fusion music, that influence that had on bands such as your Sakile, bands such as your Spirits Rejoice, and even how also South Africa. Let's not forget how South Africa also influenced Miles Davis in the music that he wrote, in the causes that he saw to also support, because he was also in touch with South African musicians such as your Mamire Makeba, your Hugh Masekela, and what they told him about South Africa, and also when he also did things which were not also fashionable. Like for example, in 1985, he chose to protest against the Sun City concert, banning where a lot of musicians, American musicians, went to perform in Sun City. He chose not to perform in Sun City, and he protested against the apartheid system in South Africa. He said he'd rather not go to South Africa, and experience apartheid. He'd rather fight against apartheid on his own terms, and basically civil rights. He was very much involved in civil rights, I think, in his own particular way. And I think that's what we have gleaned from him, and how he talks about social issues, and that other musicians have also picked up on. So I think that's the influence that we can actually glean from Miles Davis. Not only just him being a great trumpeter. I think there were many aspects to his musicianship. Particularly his activism, his what he chose to focus on in his music. I mean, he wrote the album Amandla, which means power, power to the people. Tutu, dedicated to a Nobel laureate, Desmond Tutu. He chose not to perform in South Africa in 1985 as a protest against many musicians, even our very own, who actually went to Sun City, even our own who were hypocritical. Okay, I choose not to mention them. Who said, let's boycott Amandla, but when the check comes, they were like, hey, I'll join Paul Simon. I'll join Paul Simon because Paul Simon is giving me a nice check.
No one, man.
No, yeah. I mean,
he stood his ground.
No, for sure.
He definitely stood his ground. But I'll say because he stood his ground because he was. I mean, he could. Maybe some other people had economic factors to think about, but he was he was principled in that regard.
Yeah.
I don't know about other things, but that he was very principled about.
But certainly, Darren, whenever you
can I come in there? Mandla, I like what you just said now, because the truth is, it says it didn't speak to us as trumpet players or as musicians. No, when you say to people, Tutu, and Tutu did this, and Tutu does this, and Tutu that. So you're not talking to just musicians, you're talking about the whole nation in South Africa. That I am Miles Davis, and I'm going to be with you, and I hear your pain, and I hear what you're going through, and I'm going to be with you. So that's exactly what Miles Davis did. For me, that's what I think. Not just influencing the jazz music in South Africa. Yes, I've spoken about that already when I say, when Brahu got when Jonas Gwangwa, when Caiaphas got there in America, they met with him. And he already knew, where are these guys coming from? And don't try to be us. Don't try to be one of us just in music, but show us what you have from that side. We want to know you. Even Zim Gawana, when he went to the US, he went there trying to be, was it trying to be another saxophone player like Kenny Garrett and all that. And remind me of the drama.
Max Roach.
Yes, and Max Roach said, we want to hear you, want to hear where you're coming from. So basically, those are the people who shape, but I'm going to concentrate more on Miles because we're talking about Miles. Us here at home, the simplicity, I'm going to stress again on the simplicity. That's where we learn the simplicity. And it's so beautiful. Brahu, he got his voice through through Miles Davis, because he was told that this is what you need to do. This is where you're coming from. Give us the taste of where you're coming from. And when he came back here, fortunately, 2-3 weeks ago, I did a Hugh Masekela tribute. And I was so happy the trumpet players I had, they all wanted to quote what Brahu has done. So basically, he got his voice, that voice that we're trying to imitate today, from the same people, from Miles Davis and all that. So we need to just respect that. And yeah, that's what it is, basically.
Yeah, Darren?
Man, I agree with Mandla and Sydney wholeheartedly. I also feel that Miles's influence on, say, the trumpet players of South Africa is inevitable, just because when you take up jazz trumpet, it's, Miles is the guy you check out, and if you don't check his music out, if you don't check him out, you definitely have heard his music, listened to him, or have obviously checked his style out. So I think naturally, by listening to Miles or checking him out, or even being a student of Miles Davis in South Africa, that naturally has an impact on him being a part of our music, And I think that us as South Africans, as broad scoped as we are here, so many races, so many cultures, so to have Miles or someone like Miles be such a major influence, it's not that we try and play like Miles or that we have a harmony mute in because we're like, well, this song I wrote for Miles. We still come with our own thing. So it's not about playing someone else's music. We play our own music, but it has so many different influences. Miles, we're celebrating him today, but Miles is also just one of the many influences that culminates to what we do on a daily. So I never pick up my one and go like, man, I'm just thinking about Miles. I'm not even sure what I'm thinking about if I do pick up my one, but knowing that we've lived with Miles' music and we still do, and seeing that we are on his topic, that naturally becomes a part of South Africa because we are South Africans. So it's not something that I can go, if you listen to this record in 1985 or this record in 1975, you can hear the influence. I also don't like it when people dissect what they think they hear, because we'll never know. You can't say, like, for example, my biggest argument is like with a styles and analysis type course where you go, well, this is what he was thinking. Man, I can tell you this, when I play, I'm not thinking. And then if someone transcribes that and say, I can see he was thinking that arpeggio or that line, or if you look at Miles, it's like he's so hip. There's no way he's going, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm doing. Or there's no way he's thinking, I'm going to influence that country, I'm going to influence that country. But by him being Miles Davis and him just being so true to the music and to himself so much that he's even given up music at a certain point, to be so pure to the core for the individual, by the individual. There's no way that we can't be influenced by that, or other countries, So I think Miles' influence on us as South African trumpet players is inevitable, even if you don't hear Miles in our playing.
No, for sure. I mean, look, that's why I mean it's a brilliant answer because I find the question somewhat problematic because Miles Davis is a Black American man. I'm not channeling Miles in any way, shape, and form, and not because I'm a bass player. I'm not thinking about Miles, but his influence, like you say, it's unmistakable if you check out jazz because in my opinion, he's one of the pillars of the genre. You can't not go there. He's one of the founding fathers of so many things about it. Again, I fall back onto my first recording is Fat Time, which is a funk track.
Yeah.
But it's the Bill Evans Miles Davis argument, which is the birth of the cool, very different color. Then you look at Donna Lee, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis argument again.
Yeah.
It's Miles's tune.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like when you look at Miles's influence as it pertains to being South African, I think I like your take on it. It's the humanity of it, which ties into Mandela's thing as well. Where I mean, this guy's fighting an apartheid regime in the States, in a place that doesn't want to hear about it, but he sympathizes because he's been through our struggle. Obviously not the same thing. With carry on.
But then also to the point that Mandela made, like the fact that he could have named his albums anything. He was Miles Davis.
1,000 things, yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He could have named those albums anything. So the fact that he did that meant more than him getting on a plane to come and fight here, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
Because at the same time, just like a gig is a once-off thing, right?
And it's fleeting. It's gone when it's done. Yes,
man,
I'm with you. I see you. I know you're going.
An album, and this is how I see albums, even when I make them now. Man, even if it takes me 20 years to make another album, like an album lives forever. You can't change it. You can never change it.
Yes.
So knowing what Miles did, also, all those musicians at the time, everything just sounded so. We still refer to that as maybe the golden era, but the fact that he chose that with a record label behind him, backing that, to name an album Amandla, to name an album Tutu, and stand firm on that, and they still live today, and they've outlived him.
Timeless albums, yeah, for sure.
They are timeless there, and they're always going to be that, So I think if you go back and look at his humanity on that level, to almost have the foresight to go, I'm going to put an album out now that's going to outlive this issue, but will always be there as a reference. It's not just the concert in Sun City that he could have been a part of or isn't a part of, So I agree with
that's what I'm saying. Like, this is so bang on. It's interesting because we're not. Yeah, sorry, carry on.
To elaborate on your points, Miles Davis did live through racism, and
he
did live through police brutality.
Of course.
And and when he was a successful black man, and how he would be stopped by policemen and thinking that he stole that car.
Yeah, absolutely. I was about to say.
And how he was beaten by policemen, a jealous young white policeman outside a club, because he was black and he saw him in a Ferrari. Points out to systematic injustice that was already happening in America. So those are the two parallels that you can draw.
True.
And when the South Africans came to the States, he empathized with them because he knew this is what that's what America was dealing. America was dealing with Jim Crow, basically.
It essentially resonated with him, and he got it because and that's why the South African struggle resonates with many Black Americans and vice versa. That's why also we imitate a lot of America because we see ourselves in them. They represent ourselves. So when we listen to jazz, when we hear the blues, when we hear rock, when we see America, we see, especially in its music, we see ourselves in that music because it speaks to us and it speaks to our struggles. So I think also on top of that Miles Davis was also even amongst his people, he put people on, not just the people that he played with, the people that he didn't play with. He put Woody Shaw on. He got Woody Shaw a recording contract. He put on Lee Morgan. He gave advice to Lee Morgan. He put Freddie Hubbard on. So he was a generous spirit.
and he also embodied so many aspects of just being a person. Yeah. So I think that's what we can glean from
this
him.
is what's
Yeah.
kind of cool about
Sure.
this, is because we're supposed to be talking about Miles's music and his phrasing, but I love that we're talking about how Miles's humanity resonates with us as South African people. And so that's with David's point as well. His Miles Davis biography is not flattering, and it's going to be a timeless testament to his information. It's one of the favorite things I enjoyed as a young musician was reading biographies. It was my favorite, just to get into the insight to some extent, because like Darren said earlier, I could never truly know what Miles was thinking. It's an impossibility. My brain is not on that level.
Yes.
And then when you see all the intent behind that one note he plays, I can't play that one note. Yeah, I can physically, but I don't get it. I don't.
Yeah.
I can't.
Sure.
It's just, so I feel like these are very, very, very good valid points here. So, okay, I want to quickly touch on before we close up, because there's not a lot of time left. When you look at maybe not going forward, and it's a bit of it's a weirdly loaded question, because we're all at different points in career, and we've all been involved in education going forward in some capacity. We're all lecturing or teaching at some point. So what do you think is relevant, or what about Miles's playing specifically, not maybe the person, just from a sheer musical standpoint, repertoire, pedagogy, what about Miles's playing do you think we can still continue teaching, or what impact do you think it'll still be for contemporary professionals and contemporary students coming up? I don't know if the question is clear. I think it is. So it's essentially, what do you think remains relevant about Miles going forward? Short version.
I would say the simplicity and not forgetting where you're coming from and what you want to do is very important. And I want to believe that's exactly what he was doing. And I've spoken about the simplicity at the beginning of this conversation. So basically, I'll say it's exactly that. And two, understand what you want to do and where you're coming from and how you want to embrace and make it work. And make it work, the ideas or the sounds that you grew up with and hearing, the influences that you have, it mustn't be changed. But the simplicity, I will say, let's keep it on, and let's remember to tell our learners as well. The simpler, the better. Less is more. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I just right off the bat want to interject there and kind of go, I think that statement is great, but it's one of the most difficult things
it is
you could ever as a musician do, because essentially you're taking every single year of your lived experience and playing and practicing and going, you know what, that's the note I'm choosing to play now, and I'm going to leave a hole. That is brave. I'm just saying, it's a heavy thing to try and teach going forward, but Miles gives us that in abundance.
Yes, and it's even better because Miles has been, like Darren was saying, through the different genres. Miles has been there, Mandla was saying. So basically, it's not somebody who's saying these things because he couldn't do them. He is done.
He can.
He can do those things, but it's just like I've done it. But for you to start doing certain things, please start.
Sydney?
It's actually a mastery, but it's so impossible to do as a young person. But it's nice that you put it in their path, or just to grow that seed from the outset.
Sydney, just to go on your point, like Miles, less is more, and all that. Like, I always thought as a kid growing up, when I went to jam sessions, I always thought, why is everyone not playing on some of the songs that I know they do know? I just thought, man, if I knew that song, I'd be playing there. Maybe it was being hungry as I was younger, or just wanted to play a lot. But Miles still teaches us in his demeanor and in his way, in his style of playing, that you don't have to play all the time. You don't have to play a lot. You don't again, like Miles, like Mando was saying, when he was the sideman with Cannonball, and even though he took the second solo, when he played, it was so different. And but that command can only come with that, you know. If you're hungry all the time, they're probably not going to invite you to all the dinners, you know.
Yeah, it's a good expression.
Like
That's good.
if you show, you know, if you're hungry, it's one thing, but if you're greedy, you know. And Miles is like,
Thank you.
Miles is almost like, I don't want to say picky, but he was like selective, you know.
No,
You know,
yeah.
and that for me, that resonates so much in your question, Sean. Like, how does this continue for the next generation? It's like, man, Miles, like take Miles, but then also choose to not take it. You know, it's like using all that Miles is. I think check out cats before Miles, guys. Miles was checking out Dizzy, Roy Aldridge, you know, Fats. Check out these guys. Miles even listened to vocalists to get his phrasing down. So it's like as we're talking now about Miles, we're not even talking musically. We're talking about what
As
we
person,
get
yeah.
as person. You know, how we feel Miles on a humane level. But like, if we're trying to emulate or being influenced by Miles, I think it always goes deeper than the plane. You know, it goes, man, how was Miles living? Like Marla said, man, he was dealing with so much at the same time, yet he could put out music that we love during like a heavy time in globally, and especially in the States as a black man. So
No,
you see that and you go, man, like, how do you I'd want to take more of Miles as a human being playing the trumpet than Miles playing the trumpet,
gotcha.
because he could put out these albums during those periods, which is insane if you think about it. I mean, here in modern times, some small thing happens and people blow it out the water, and you go like, "There's no way I'll record. There's no way that
Yeah, it's
I'm not."
too. Yeah.
Man, he persevered. So if anything, I think taking that with through to the next generation or through to the next genre or whatever's to come of this music or the next, that's what I would take from Miles.
Oh wow.
Then yeah, Madla, we got 4 or 5 minutes. Don't want to rush you, but I mean, what's your takeaway here?
Yes. So I think with Miles Davis, there's always an aspect of something that you can teach from whatever period you're going through. Let's start. Let's from when he also didn't know how to really play. When he was picked by Charlie Parker to replace Dizzy Gillespie, he wouldn't play the full chorus. He'd play maybe 8 bars, and then somebody would pick up from there. And in those 8 bars, there was still some music. And it's also learning that you don't need to know everything all the time.
Sure.
And what he teaches us is that progressively as a musician, you also get better, and you also carve out your own path, and that's what Miles's music teaches us. And throughout the whole progression, I mean, you've touched on his collaborations with Jill Evans, and how also Miles also brought a very different audience to jazz, which with various projects and also its various directions in music, and what you can also glean on is not just Miles was also very simple, but he was also complicated. Not just as a person, his music was also, there's some aspects of the music which was complicated, which was tricky. His ensembles, his arrangements were not just head in, head out, and the people that he chose to work with can teach us a lot. And I think in every aspect, whether you're learning how to transcribe, learning how to actually branch out in your range, Miles teaches us, because when he started out, he had a very limited range, but towards the height of his pinnacle of his trumpet career, I mean, that guy had like almost a 4-octave range, or range of expression. But even within him having a limited range, he knew how to express his ideas quite concisely. So, and that's the thing about music, and that's the thing that we need to learn, that you're not trying to be a musician. You are a musician. You are a person who's always trying to constantly express themselves, find new avenues for self-expression and ways of actually talking to things that are also affecting you. So that's what I can glean from actually the Miles Davis experience and how he also dealt with issues at the time.
One note was a chorus, if I may say.
Yeah, yeah. There was everything and nothing simultaneously.
Yeah.
One
You know
note
what's
was
really wild?
Yeah. Sorry?
You know what's really wild, just to go on all of our topics and all of our points, is that Miles, what's so special about him, thinking about it now, Miles, you give to a beginner
yes.
and to the top tier
You're
of
pro.
season.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like who else can be that? You know what I mean? You can literally take Miles, you can go like, okay, you starting out in jazz, check out So What.
Yes.
2 notes. That song has 2 notes.
Pipado.
You know? We all know that. You know, like the actual song has 2 notes that just goes up, you know, up half step.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
done.
So
Yeah,
we can give that to a beginner, but yet that is at the highest level of
Exactly.
that's the highest pro level. So like I think Miles, I mean, that just again goes to his genius that it was so acceptable, not only for a certain age group, man, it's for everyone.
It's for everybody.
Which
I
is
was about to say
absolute-
skill
which is
level,
wild.
age bracket. Gents, thank
Yeah.
you so very much for your time. We've reached the end. I'd like to give you a personal thanks for being on this. Again, thanks to SAJE, Cape Town Jazz Fest, and all the affiliated bodies for having us along. Thank you to Steel, the legend, for sorting out the tech and stuff for the live stream. And yeah, guys, yeah, thank you so much. Reach out to your local SAJE reps. Come and find us, musos. We're always keen to share. Yeah, gents, thank you so very much. Have a very good evening.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks,
Okay.